Hello, everyone. Today, my presentation will be on the life and times of American poet and journalist Walt Whitman, one of the most famous names in American poetry. The thesis for my presentation is Walt Whitman's poetry represents the aftermath of the Civil War in society and how poetry in the United States transitioned into realism following that surge of national pride and democracy. Walter Walt Whitman was born in 1819 in Long Island, New York, as the second of 9 children. He moved from Long Island to Brooklyn at the age of 4 and described his childhood as unpleasant because of financial issues, but he was very close with his mother. He stopped attending school at age 11, but was incredibly intelligent and well-read, which allowed him to start working in offices as an apprentice for the Patriot newspaper, which was his first taste of the writing world. As an adult, he worked a series of different jobs, including teaching, but did not enjoy it. He eventually created his own newspaper called the Long Islander. He later sold the rights to E.O. Crowell in 1839, and there's no surviving publications under his name. He moved to New York City in 1841, where he worked for the newspapers New World, Aurora, and Brooklyn Daily Edge, all for only short periods of time. Walt loved to critique music most of all, and listened to opera frequently, which he later claimed inspired his interest in free verse and led to his most famous works. Walt is considered the father of free verse, even though he did not invent it. Along with his numerous newspaper articles and editorials, just some of Walt's early works included a mystery novel called Life and Adventures of Jack Eagle in 1852, and Manly Health and Training under the pen name Mose Vessler in 1858. Walt's other most famous works, which we will not be discussing today, include Drum Taps in 1865, a collection of poems about the Civil War. He later created a sequel the following year with 18 additional poems. By all accounts, Walt's most famous publication is Leaves of Grass. It was considered his life's work, and he was continually edited and republished it over the years. It was first published in 1855, and that edition included 12 poems. Over 400 poems are included in the last one. Just under 800 copies of the first edition were printed, and it did not even have the author's name on the cover, rather a portrait of Walt on the first page. It did not initially sell well, but the book became more popular over time as newer editions went on the market. Today, it is one of the most best-selling books of classic poetry in America. The quote I've selected is from "O Captain, My Captain," a poem included in a later version of Leaves of Grass. I really liked how this guy read it, so enjoy.
O Captain, my Captain, our fearful trip is done. The ship has weathered every wrack, the prize we sought is won. The port is near, the bells I hear, the people all exulting, while follow eyes the steady keel, the vessel grim and daring. But oh, heart, 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 oh, the bleeding drops of red, where on the deck my captain lies, fallen, cold and dead. Oh, Captain, my Captain, rise up and hear the bells. Rise up, for you the flag is flung, for you the bugle trills, for you the bouquets and ribbon wreaths, for you the shores are crowding, for you they call the swaying mass, their eager faces turning. Here, Captain, dear father, this arm beneath your head. It is some dream that on the deck you've fallen cold and dead. Oh, Captain, my Captain.
This poem is meant to be a eulogy to Abraham Lincoln following his assassination. Walt greatly admired Lincoln, and it's said that Lincoln read his poetry in his office. It describes the pain Americans felt after losing their beloved president and has violent imagery of the war to showcase the broken state of the Union following its death and the Reconstruction era. While much of the general public enjoyed Leaves of Grass, it was harshly criticized for its violent and inappropriate or obscene topics, but many still praised it, as this columnist said here, "If they can see nothing in this book except indecency and bombastic truisms, the inference must be that their sensibilities are not delicate enough to recognize the fresh, strong, healthy presentation of common things in a way that revivifies them, the generous aspiration of fine sympathy with man and nature, the buoyant belief in immortality, which are no less characteristic of the author than his mistaken boldness in displaying the cardinal side of existence, and is particularly in describing disease or lonesome decay. Walt gathered a circle of author colleagues following the publishing, including famous writers Henry David Thoreau, Amos Bronson Alcott, and Ralph Waldo Emerson, who greatly admired his work. Their contributions to Romanticism and Naturalism had inspired him to begin writing in the first place, which allowed him to kickstart realism as a genre. Today, we often view Leaves of Grass as an expression of democracy and as a rallying cry to the American working class, who he was primarily writing to. Its sexual nature was also a defining characteristic of the book. And being that many scholars speculate that Walt was gay, it could possibly have been an expression of his sexuality. As the Civil War began, Walt worked in the Army paymaster's office and volunteered as a nurse in a Union hospital. The carnage and tragedy he witnessed inspired him to write Beat, Drums, Beat, memoranda during the war, and many others. He continued republishing Leaves of Grass, cared for his ailing mother, and even interviewed Confederate soldiers for presidential pardons. Walt suffered a stroke in 1873 and was forced to move to New Jersey with his brother. He was able to continue working as his health declined. 1891 saw the final copy of Leaves of Grass, nicknamed the Deathbed Edition. Walt Whitman passed away on March 26, 1892, at the age of 72. Walt Whitman's biggest legacy on American society is the image of America and the American citizen itself. His work created a foundation for how authors of the future wrote about the United States, its values, its ambitions, and there simply wouldn't be American poetry without him. Thanks for listening.